Hello, Lily King. Welcome.
Hi,
How
Ellie.
are you?
Very well. How are you?
Well, we could be better, but we are okay. We talk about beautiful books, so we are fine.
Oh, that's good.
So thank you for being here for the Romanian readers. And I have your book with a beautiful cover. I
Yes.
think it's very chic. So we are talking about your novel Writers and Lovers, a very beautiful fiction. And it's a fiction about literature, about having a dream, about dreaming of writing a novel, the dream of a girl to be published one day, but it's also about love. It's also about a mother who's dead, and we'll talk about this. But it's also a book about the passion of a writer to write. I mean, this is what I kept inside of me, and I would like you to answer right now for the readers. What made you write a book about writing a book?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't mean to. I thought I was writing something else, and I was writing something else for a long time. I did a lot of research, and then my mother died suddenly, and I couldn't go back to the book I was writing, and I sort of put it aside, and I didn't write anything for a really long time. And when I started writing again, I saw my character Casey in the driveway, you know, in her slippers with the landlord's dog. And, you know, I knew she was broke. I knew her mother had just died because I really needed to write about that experience somehow. And I knew that she had a novel back in her moldy apartment that she was trying to finish. And it really surprised me. I didn't know that I was ready to write about being a writer because you know, it doesn't always make for interesting reading, you know. I think like a painter or a sculptor, it can be more visual, it can be more physical, but writing isn't, you know. And so I was hesitant to write too much about writing, but I knew that she had this passion and that she was in her early 30s and she was just trying to pursue this dream that most people around her, you know, they had given up their dreams and she didn't want to.
So it's not 100% fiction, as I said it before. It's half fiction because it's somehow inspired from your own life. And I would like to say from the very beginning, even if the main character is Casey, a young girl aged 31, aiming to publish a book, writing a book for 6 years. There is also a main character, I dare to say the mother, because even if she's not present in the novel, she's like a shadow all over the novel. It's like, I don't know, an alter ego of your main character. Does the mother of Casey looks like your mother in real life?
She's not. You know, my mother didn't live in Cuba and didn't have her mother's experiences, but certainly Casey's grief and her missing of her mother and how it feels is very, very similar to how I was feeling as I was writing the book.
So Casey, as I was saying, she's 31. She arrives in Massachusetts in the summer of 1997 in your book. And she has a lot of financial problems. And all she receives as mails are wedding invitations and financial notices to pay debts and taxes and so on. And she's struggling with writing a book for 6 years. And she's also tries to find love. And love is very important in your book. But I would like you to tell us more about your main character, Casey, and the way you viewed her life between writing and love. At one point, the two are, I don't know, melting together.
Yeah. I mean, she falls in love, or she starts to date two men, both of who are writers, but they're at different stages of their career. One is just starting out, hasn't published anything, and then the other is 15 or 16 years older, and he's already written 3 novels, and he's quite successful by sort of local standards. I mean, he's definitely, he of course wants to be much more successful, but to Casey, he is, wildly successful. And so that is all sort of tied together. I think Casey is just at this really, really difficult period in her life where nothing seems to be going right. She is $70,000 in debt. Like, it's not little debt, it's big debt. And from education and from credit cards. And she just, it's all kind of coming home to roost on her right now, this debt. And she's working at a restaurant, and it's a difficult job with a difficult cook who's, very sexist and sort of verbally abusive and kind of
not only verbally.
yeah, also has had moments of being physically threatening. And she's grieving her mother, and what are her other problems? She has terrible anxiety. The anxiety has kind of come out of nowhere. She hasn't had it before, but all of these things sort of brew to make her feel really scared of the future. And I sort of see it as she's kind of standing at this big cavern or abyss, and she's the whole rest of her life is kind of on the other side of it, and she's just trying to get across, and she doesn't really know how. And that is definitely something I felt around Casey's age, and had to deal with myself. And so I did draw on some of my own experiences with that. And also, with finding love and because she keeps failing at love. I mean, failing, her relationships don't work out. And now she has 2 who really care about her, and, she doesn't really know what to do. And it's all kind of all mixed up inside her.
You were talking about the 2 boys she met. Okay, we are talking about Silas and Oscar, just to name the 2 men.
Yes.
And they both are writers, or not very writers, you know what I mean? Because at one point, and I love this because you have such a humor in your book, it's Casey saying, but I can't go out with a guy who's written 11.5 pages in 3 years. That kind of thing is contagious. I mean, she's living always, even if we are talking about love or writing, she has this sense of fear. She's driven by this feeling of fear. And I thought at one point, every writer has this fear of failure.
Yes.
Do you have sometimes?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, everything I write feels like a failure until someone reads it and responds to it in some positive way. I just had to write an essay, that I was struggling so much with, and I handed it in yesterday, and I just felt like it was a disaster. And then, I got some really nice feedback about it, and now I'm like, oh yeah, that was fine. But the whole time I was writing it just felt like complete failure. I think I don't know. It's probably not healthy. I don't know how much it really drives me, but it just is a natural feeling that I've just kind of come to learn to live with, and kind of accept, okay, I think this is bad now, but in a couple of days, I won't think it's that bad, and that's how I've kind of come to live with fear and doubt, and kind of the inner critic inside me.
The men actually are very important in your book. Either we talk about the absence of the father of Casey, who's very important, even if he's not there. He's very important because he has a great influence on the behavior of his daughter and her way of being afraid in her life, always being alone and not having someone to help her.
Yeah.
Goes through. And these two men, okay, we are not talking about the guy she broke up with at the beginning of the novel, but let's talk about Oscar and Silas. You know, for a reader, I mean, I find Oscar a very nice man. Okay, he has two sons, but he's a nice man.
Yeah.
And yet your novel changes a little. We won't tell the end because we don't want to make a spoiler. But how did you conceive these two men? They are the same, but they are different, and yet the choice that Casey does is somehow surprising, I would say.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that there are two. It is hard to talk about without having any spoilers, but
we try.
I think what happens is she meets them and she has perceptions and ideas of them. And as she gets to know them, those perceptions change because they're revealing themselves. More and more they reveal themselves. And I think I really was interested in kind of showing the reader that first impressions are not are just not accurate. You think so much you know that person, but you truly don't know that person until you're in various situations, you know. And Oscar, I think he has a lot of charisma and charm, and he really woos her, and he seems to wear his heart on his sleeve, right? And that is very compelling to her because she is so alone in this world. And Silas is just withholding everything. You know, he's very self-protective. But I, you know, she comes to figure out, you know, like who is really capable of love, you know. I think it takes her a long time to figure that out.
You are very kind with Silas because he's disappearing and he's appearing and he's disappearing. And
That's true.
Yes. So I already told you, you are you have such a beautiful humor in your book. I mean, subtle phrases. I mean, it's so funny sometimes. But something I really observed is the fact that you have a lot of literary references. I mean, poets and writers. You talk about writers' life, the way, for instance, their relation with their mother influenced their work. And I realized that for you as a writer, these influences from the classics, because you are talking, I have a sign here, you talk about George Eliot, D.H. Lawrence, Marcel Proust, Virginia Woolf. So who are all these writers who really, I think, influenced you in writing not only this novel, but generally speaking? I mean, the classics are very important for a writer.
I mean, in that chapter, the reason that they are sort of older writers is because she's going to the library and looking up biographies. So contemporary writers don't have any biographies written about them yet. And so, you know, she had to kind of go back, but it's true. They are all classical writers kind of in the Anglo-European tradition. And for me, I mean, first of all, I just want to say, I'm so glad that the humor came through. You know, you never know how translation.
Yes, a lot.
I'm really glad because it truly, humor is something that really gets lost in translation very quickly. So I'm very happy about that. And I think I think one of my biggest influences is Virginia Woolf. That she's had a huge impact on me. I don't think that you can see it in my writing, but just in why I write and why I love to write and what gets me excited about writing, is someone like Virginia Woolf. Also, the essay that was terrible that I just wrote is about, and the reason I was struggling so much with the essay is because I love this book so much. It's called The Evening of the Holiday by Shirley Hazard. And she is a woman who I think she was born around 33, I think. And she was born in Australia, moved to England, and then married an American and came to this country. And I love her work so much. And I worked in a bookstore. That's how I discovered her. Nobody ever told me about her. I was just shelving this book one time, in California in the early 90s. And I don't know, I picked it up and we were allowed, it was a used bookstore and we were allowed to bring the books home. And so I just brought it home and read it, and that was it. I mean, just mad love ever since. And then more contemporary, I love Elizabeth Strout. I love Tessa Hadley. I love Colm Toybeen. I feel like, I love Marilyn Robinson, Toni Morrison. Faulkner was a huge influence on me. J.D. Salinger was huge. Alice Munro, huge.
Of course.
and then a lot of the books that are referenced in this book are definitely writers I love, like Thomas Bernhardt. He gets a little feature when Casey has a job interview. She starts thinking about Bernhardt. Independent People by Haldor Laxness. That's a big book for me too. So those are just some of them.
Speaking of writers, I mean, it's not a secret if we say that a writer has to eat. A writer has to live out of something.
Yes.
He can't just hope that his next book will be sold all over the world. No, this is not a life. And there's one character in your book saying, and I love that very much, he says to Casey, trying to be a writer and to make money out of it, you're a gambler, you gambled, you bet the farm. So she bet everything she had in life just to write a book. Your success or failure are not based on what happens with that pile of papers, because she sent the pile of papers somewhere. And this is a very interesting question. We find throughout your book, what's success in writing? I mean, how do you survive just having faith that one day your writing will be a success? It's not that easy as it seems.
No, it certainly isn't. And the tricky thing about writing is that you make a living based on other people's opinions, just their random opinions on a random day when they read your book, like I have a new book coming out. It's been assigned at a major newspaper and I have no idea who will be reading it and what mood they're going to be in that day. And so much rides on just a handful of people reading your book and writing a glowing review or a not glowing review. And so it's so out of your control. And so there's that success. And then there's the success just inside you, which I think is, which is really by far the most important success. I mean, I think, I don't think I spoiled the book by saying Casey finishes her novel,
Yes,
and
no, she finishes.
There's the success. Like whatever happens to that novel afterwards, but Casey finishes it. And there is so much satisfaction in having done that. I mean, it's just like climbing a mountain or going on a 3-week hike or any kind of thing that you set out to do and you finish it and you get that that satisfaction. And what other people think about it is kind of irrelevant to how you feel. Like, did you come anywhere close to your vision of what you wanted to do? You know, and if the answer is yes, then there is your success. And we can't all make money on writing. I mean, you know, it's not going to happen for everybody. But I think to do it and to find pleasure just within it, just for yourself, is huge.
I mean, we get to love very much your character, Casey, because you have a gift as a writer, just to make us, the readers, to understand every single detail from her life. I mean, for you, nothing is just there, just to be there in the novel. I mean, her tiny room, we get to know everything inside the tiny room. Her work at Iris, the restaurant, we get to know every single relation she has with every single character out there. You are very, I mean, it's like, you know, Balzac kind of approach. You like very much the details. And you said at one point that you didn't like very much dialogues. You like reading dialogues, but not writing. But in your dialogues, we find out a lot of things about the characters.
Yeah.
Was it important for you?
Essential.
You use a lot dialogues, and
I love. I mean, I do love dialogue, and I love picking up a book and seeing lots of dialogue, you know, before I start reading it. Because I think that is how we learn from each, you know, you learn who people are from what they say and how they behave in conversations. And people, you can tell somebody something in a big long paragraph, but you could show it in a few lines of dialogue a lot faster. And it's interesting what you say about detail, because I don't actually feel like I use a lot of detail. I just try to use a few details that hopefully bring the whole thing alive, so that, you know, you see the gilt chairs or whatever in the restaurant, but then you also see, you know, everything else there. That and I think it's really about the reader's imagination. It's really about sparking, just giving a couple of things that spark the reader's imagination so that they see more, and they can they you know, apply their own creativity to the scene. And so we kind of, you know, work together. And I feel like when I read books, I don't want to be told too much, you know. I just want to be told a few things, and then I want to be able to imagine the rest. But they have to be the right things, and that's the hard part. They are. Is getting just the right details that bring it alive.
I was to forget when I said that you have such a good sense of humor in your book. And this happens even when Casey goes to the doctor, for instance, for mammography. I mean, she's really lovely because she works a lot. She has problems in love. She struggles with her book. She just can't finish. At one point, she's like, I mean, her life is a crisis, a complete crisis. But she takes care of her health, which is good, even if she doesn't have an assurance. I mean, she's poor girl. She's like, she doesn't know on what earth she's living. And you are very funny when she's going to the doctor, and probably she has a cancer. She doesn't know, but she's smiling. She's so optimistic, and she's very sincere. And I want to read you something, and it's not only for you, it's for the readers, because it's the perfect presentation of your character, Casey. I tell them the truth. I mean, she's talking to some students, okay? She's becoming a teacher, and I tell them I am 31 years old and $73,000 in debt, as you said. I tell them that since college, I've moved 11 times, had 17 jobs, and several relationships that didn't work out. I've been estranged from my father since 12th grade, and earlier this year, my mother died. So she's a sad character, a very sad character, but I would like the readers to know that the end is a good end, a beautiful end, and we all need happy endings. Have you thought of the ending from the very beginning? or it just came? It came
No,
out later.
I had hoped that I would get to where she got to. I didn't know. You never know if you can get there. And I certainly didn't know. I knew emotionally where I wanted her to be. And I did know, you know, a few things that that I hoped would happen. But that whole parking lot scene, you know, close to the very, very end, that I mean, and none of that. I didn't know anything about the writing festival or the parking lot scene or David Byrne, or I had none of that. I just emotionally knew how I wanted her to feel at the end. And then I just hoped that I could get there.
You know, you said David Byrne. It's like a complete circle you did with your books, because there are some light motifs which appear at the beginning and then they appear at the end of the story, like the talking heads, for instance. And music is very important in your novel. You always talk about music. There's some soundtrack
it's
all
true.
over your novel. You're a fan of talking heads?
I am. I mean, I'm not like a super fan, but I'm definitely a fan. And I was obsessed in college with oh God.
Tear for Fears? No,
it was it's the one we were on the road to nowhere, and anyway, it came out in ~84.
It's a band.
Okay. That's with it.
Do you listen to music when you write, for instance?
Never.
Never.
I wish.
Complete silence.
I want to be a painter because my husband's a painter, and he, you know, can listen to music and all kinds of things while he works, and it just seems so fun. But no, I can't listen to anything. You know, sometimes I have to shut my windows because, you know, there's too much outside noise. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like in the end you to send a message for your readers, and I dare to say, for the girls who dream to write a book. I will tell you, I dream to write a book. I'll never be able to. Okay, but
you can.
No, it's very, very difficult, and we are not all cases. I guess she has a lot of talent. So please.
Honestly, it's all about discipline. It's all about sitting down and doing it. You know, that's where that's the only talent, is having the patience to sit down and just get through it. It really is. But I guess, hold on for 2 seconds. I just want to show you. I have a little show and tell, if that's okay. Just this is for the people who want to write. I always write by hand, and all I do, you just start in a notebook and you just start writing, and you know, it's as simple as that. I mean, and I love writing in here because I just write. I have no inner critic when I write in my notebook by hand. You know, I just like let it all go, and then when I put it on the computer, you know, I can edit and think about it a little bit better. But I think it's important to just have a place where you can make all kinds of mistakes and just kind of blurt it all out. So I just wanted to show you that it's not, it's just writing in a notebook. That's all it is.
The only way to be a writer is to write.
Yeah, it's true.
It's that simple. So please tell a message about your book, I repeat, with this beautiful cover, very chic, for the Romanian readers. What they would expect from your novel, half fiction, let's say.
Well, I guess, you know, I just write so that people can have an experience, you know, people can have an experience being kind of in a different voice, a different consciousness, really. And so you're seeing the world from Casey's point of view for a little while, and having experiences that you wouldn't necessarily have had. And it just, I don't know, I feel I read for that reason, to enrich my life with just other people's points of view and other people's experiences. And I think it, you know, ultimately it just hopefully makes you a more compassionate person. So that would be my hope, that you would just be entertained and I don't know, and have some escape and have some enjoyment.
and give the courage to write if someone wants. Yes.
And maybe some inspiration.
Yeah.
I have gotten a lot of letters of people who say, I have taken my novel that I abandoned out of the closet and I'm writing it again. And I love those letters so much.
That's lovely. Yes.
Yeah.
That's huge for a writer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lily King. You are an inspiration with your novel. And you are very kind. And just hoping that someday we will probably meet in Romania. We never say. Let's just stay optimistic.
I hope so. I hope so too. Thank you so much. This is so fun.
Thank you so much. You're so cute. And your book.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.